Hello, Internet, and welcome back to Week 2 of the Hot Action Podcast, your source for top-of-the-line, free sports betting analysis. Last week, we started off with a perfect 1-0 record, but I got called a low-energy Jeb in the comment section on YouTube, so I'm going to work on that. But this week, we are going to be discussing the over-under win totals for the NFC teams, and we are going to be predicting all the games against the spread for Week 1 of the preseason. Okay, so to start off the NFC, we're going to start with the NFC West, and we'll kick that division off with the Rams. The LA Rams over-under is 10 wins, which is a pretty high bar to clear, especially considering they have the 5th hardest strength of schedule. And despite all this, I still think they're going to go over. Young coach, they've got a reasonably good quarterback. The team did really well last year, and they brought in a bunch of free agents that are really high caliber. I think that honestly, they are my pick to go to the Super Bowl from the NFC. I think they are the team to watch out for in the NFC. Having said all that, the next team we're going to be previewing here is the Seahawks, whose over-under is 8. And it kills me to talk so nicely about the Rams because the Seahawks are my team. And I honestly don't have a lot of faith in them this year. We've lost a lot of solid players in the last few seasons. The O-line has looked like total trash. We also have a very difficult strength of schedule. We are 5th, tied for 5th, same as the Rams. I want to be proven wrong, but I'm going to go with my head over my heart here, and I'm going to take the under. So Seahawks under 8 wins. Okay, and with the Seahawks out of the way, we move on to the second bird team of the NFC West, the Arizona Cardinals. Their over-under total is 5.5 wins. They have the 8th place strength of schedule. And I am going to be going under with them because I do not like having a rookie head coach, and I also don't like that they don't really know what they're doing at quarterback in regards to Sam Bradford or Rosen. I assume Bradford will start and Rosen will hopefully take his job, but he never finishes the season, so I expect Rosen to be playing at least a few starts, and I just don't think they're going to make it to 5.5. And then rounding out the NFC West, we finally have the San Francisco 49ers. Their over-under is 8.5 wins, and I tend to think they will be going over ever since they brought in my boy Jimmy Garoppolo, dinner with porn stars Magoo. They just haven't been able to lose a game. I tend to think that maybe they got into a little lucky run of play with the teams they were playing at the end of last year, but ultimately this guy never loses, so who cares who he's playing? He's going to get above 8.5 wins. You watch. Jimmy G. All right, so that does it for the NFC West. So up next, we got the NFC North, who we're going to start with the Detroit Lions. Now, the Detroit Lions have a 7.5 win over-under. So that means just under 50, or just under a 500 record. Unfortunately for them, despite having a pretty middle-of-the-road record last year, they have the second-place strength of schedule. No doubt, very much affected by the fact that they are in the NFC North, which seems to be a pretty killer division these days. And, I don't think they're going to make it. Usually, the Lions are good for somewhere between, 7 and 10 wins, but usually I don't think this division is as, bone-crushing as it is currently. The Lions kind of, they're hard to judge because Stafford's a pretty capable quarterback, and he could drag the team to a few extra wins, but I tend to think that they, generally their culture is not a great winning one. I'm going to go under but I wouldn't be surprised either way. I wouldn't bet this. So last but not least in the division here, we got the Green Bay Packers. Their over-under win total is 10, but they actually have the strongest strength of schedule of the year this year. They will be having a difficult season, to say the least. I tend to think that 10 is a very well placed over-under for them. But yeah, I don't think they're going to make it. I think things have to go really well for them to make 10. I think pushing is a very real possibility at 10 wins. So yeah, call me crazy, but I'm going to take the Packers under 10 wins. And so now we will do the NFC South Division, starting off with the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons have the 13th hardest strength of schedule and a 9-win over-under. Falcons are reigning division champions, and I think 9 wins should be pretty achievable for them. But this is the most tumultuous division in pro football. The same team rarely wins 2 years in a row, but I'm going to go ahead and I think the Falcons reloaded pretty reasonably. I think they'll get to 10 wins. So yeah, I'll take an over. And then we've got the Saints at 9.5 win over under. Second place tie for strength of schedule. I tend to think that the Saints kind of overperformed last year. And with this high strength of schedule, they are kind of a good candidate for regression to the mean. So I'm going to take the under with the Saints. And finally, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They have a 6.5 win over under total. And they have a 4th place strength of schedule. And based largely on that strength of schedule and the quality of their division, I'm going to put them at an under. Also because they're going to be missing Jameis for the first 3 games. I know that's kind of baked into the over-under, but I still think it will have an effect. Go ahead and put me down for under 6.5 wins for the Tampa Bay Bucs. And then, of course, we have the last division in the NFC East. And we'll be starting that off with the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys have an aggressive 8.5 win over-under and the 15th place strength of schedule. I tend to think that they might have the worst receiving core in the entire NFL. Obviously, Zeke and Dak are pretty talented. I don't think their defense is very good. I'm going to go ahead and say under 8.5 wins, just because Dallas isn't very good. Then we have the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. They have a 10.5 win over under and a 19th place strength of schedule. Personally, with such an easy strength of schedule and such a good roster, I'm going to go ahead and take the over. They have the best quarterbacking tandem in the league, and they added a few decent players in the offseason. I think they're ready to go ahead and be quite competitive again this year as soon as Carson Wentz gets back on the field. And then we have the Washington Redskins, who have a 7 win over under total and a 14th place strength of schedule. I tend to think that with Alex Smith, they're going to be pretty competitive this year. And I think that between the Cowboys and the Giants, there's going to be enough wins in there for them to hit a few outside of the division games. I think 7's pretty reasonable. I'm going to go ahead and give them the over. And finally, for our NFC preview, we have the New York Giants. The Giants have a 7 win over under total and an 8th place strength of schedule. I actually tend to think that the Giants were pretty bad last year and don't really make sense as a candidate for getting a lot better. Eli is only going to be worse based on my understanding of how human bodies work. You don't just get better when you start becoming worse. I think he's going to continue to regress, and this team's going to suffer for it. Guys like Saquon Barkley and Odell Beckham aren't going to be able to drag this team to a bunch of wins, so I think 7's high. Give me the under. Okay, so now to pick the games. First up, we've got Carolina at the Bills. The Bills are laying 2.5 points. So yeah, I'm going to be taking Carolina because I think they're the obviously better team, and you get the points. And it's preseason, so points are always good. I'm going to be up next. We've got the Bears at the Bengals. The Bengals are giving 2. I'll be taking the Bears again. Points in the preseason are always nice. And the Bears and Bengals are probably pretty close in terms of quality. Then we've got Tampa at Miami. I'm taking Miami minus 1.5. I think Tampa's really dysfunctional. Then we have the Browns at the Giants. I'm going to be taking the Giants because, I also don't believe in the Browns very much, shockingly. Then we have Pittsburgh Steelers at Philadelphia Eagles. The Pittsburgh Steelers get 3 points, so I will be taking them. I think the Eagles will probably be not super inspired to win this game after having won the Super Bowl, and Pittsburgh gets the points. I think it's a good... You always want to take the points if you're betting with Pittsburgh. Then you have Saints at Jaguars. This was difficult, but I took the Jaguars at minus 2.5. I don't know if the Saints are going to be who they were last year, so yeah, I'm going to take the Jaguars, and I feel like that's a safe choice. And Rams at Ravens, you can take the Rams at plus 3. I think the Rams are the much better team, and getting points is always good. Redskins at New England. New England tends to take the preseason pretty much like an extended practice, so I'm going to take the Redskins plus the points, and I think the New England Patriots won't be that interested in winning, so we'll see how that works. Up next, we have a pick'em, and it is the Titans at the Packers, and I thought that was ridiculous, so I just went ahead and picked the Packers, because how are the Packers ever involved in a pick'em? Then we have Houston Texans at the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs are laying 2.5 points. I took the Chiefs. Then we have the Cowboys at the 49ers. Cowboys Cowboys get 3.5 points. I took the 49ers minus 3.5 because they're at home, and it's pretty likely we might see a bit of Jimmy G in there because he's had so few reps with the first team so far. Up next, we've got the Colts and the Seahawks. Seahawks are at home, and I am giving the points away, taking the Hawks at minus 2.5. And then we got the Falcons at the Jets. Jets laying 2.5 points. I'm going to be taking the Falcons plus the points. Then we've got the Lions at the Raiders. The Raiders are 3-point favorites, so I'm taking the road team. I'm taking the Lions with 3 points. And again, we have a second pick'em, and it's the Vikings at the Broncos. I tend to think that the Vikings are the better team, so I picked the Vikings. And then finally, we have the Chargers at the Cardinals. I am taking Chargers plus 2.5. I've taken so many away teams with points, but I tend to think that most of the away teams this week are the better teams. And getting them with points in these like preseason type scenario where all sorts of nonsense happens. I just like the points, and I also like that they tend to have the better rosters. So those are my picks. If I got anything wrong, let me know in the comments because, it's all about the interaction. If you make comments, I'll respond. This has been the Hot Action Podcast. Good luck this week, everybody.